being able to learn all that stuff and really pick some of the best brains in the world. Levi Morgan, Danny McCarthy, Chris Hacker, Gillingham. I've talked to all these guys at various times to just pick up little things. And I think that's one of the cool things about, target and 3D archery is you got so many different people and to pick up information from.
Didn't you shoot with some like Aaron Snyder and those guys on your last big tournament and all that?
Yeah. When I was down in Cullman, Alabama, so the week or two leading up to that, I think Aaron had done a couple podcasts and had talked with Levi and stuff, and said that he was going to come shoot the Classic. And so I had been following Aaron Snyder for a long time. Obviously, he's such a big name in the hunting and archery industry. But it was cool to see him starting to pick up a compound bow again. He's really big on the trad side for a long time. So yeah, it was cool to see him starting to pick up a compound in a lot of his social media posts and such. So him and I don't remember what it was. Maybe it was an Instagram story or something like that. Him and I got to chatting through DM, and I think I posted like a release photo. I had a couple of my favorite releases that I was using and stuff, and he had told me to punch it. And I said, it's funny you say that because I've been punching and command shooting for the last year, and I haven't shot, I've shot better than I ever have. And so we just kind of started DMing and talking back and forth. And that week leading up to Coleman, he asked me, when I was arriving and stuff. And we got to kind of talking schedules. And I said, hey, man, I'd love to practice with you guys. It'd be cool to catch up and meet you in person. And he's like, yeah, so let's get together. So, I got in on Wednesday night, got to the practice range and stuff Thursday, and I think he arrived Thursday morning and stuff from his flight from Wyoming, because I know he's opening up the new Kafaru location out there. So yeah, we got there and got some practice arrows and stuff in, and then my buddy Levi Reitzma out of Middleville, him and I traveled together, all the ASAs and stuff. We were going to go shoot the GPO, which is a 10 target. It's a separate competition for score at these tournaments. You can shoot it as many times as you want. It's like $20 an entry, but you're only competing against the people in your class. There's a 40-yard course and a 50-yard course. So if you're a 45-yard class, you're shooting the 50-yard, course. So, but you can shoot with anybody. It's kind of like our IAAs around here.
Right.
You can just team up with 4 or 5 people, or you just get dropped in and go shoot with a group if that's the only time slot you got. But they have like tee times and stuff because it gets so busy as well. Levi and I were going to shoot the GPO, and Aaron and Levi Morgan and Justin Hanna were like right behind us. I said, hey, if you guys are going, can we join you? I mean, you can have 5 people on this at a time. And they're like, yeah, sure, let's go for it. So yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
The first arrow I got to shoot first on the first target. First arrow, I was really nervous.
Yeah, I bet.
I'm shooting. I've been looking up to Levi Morgan since I got into this. He's at the time was like 10-time world champ. Shooter of the year, and then he kept ripping off a couple more after. As I got into this, and big bow hunter and. Shoot for Matthews and this big persona, right? And you kind of, once you start getting into this stuff, you kind of pick up on, it's like if you got into wrestling or football, basketball, Michael Jordan, LeBron, like you just kind of pick up on who the best people in the world are. And of course he was at the time, still is. But yeah, so to go shoot with a guy that you've been looking up to for the last 6-7 years, and finally get to shoot with him, it was really, really cool. But yeah, I was super nervous.
Yeah, I bet. But that's the best place, man. That's better than probably any shoot off you could be in right now. Just shooting with them guys,
Yeah. This past shoot off this past weekend at Bullseye, I was pretty nervous too. I think some of it is probably the pressure I put on myself. I hate losing.
Yeah.
I got that for wrestling and athletics and stuff growing up, and I don't know if it's the best mental space to be in. I didn't shoot like don't lose, but I just was, and I got some regrets from this past weekend. I was upset with myself. I just wasn't I executed great shots. I just was aiming scared. I aimed just a little bit low, like just on purpose, aim safe and not, and with the unknown game too, I was dialed in. I knew every one of those targets in the shoot off. Once we ranged one of them, I was within a half a yard of every single one.
Wow.
Yeah. So like I knew the yardage and stuff. I just was a little, just in case I was off, and I just aimed a little too conservative and didn't pick up any 12s, and so it cost me.
I know that like when you go for like the 14, sometimes you're like subconsciously like trying to pull towards it, like, oh, if I miss, I want to go towards the the 8 or the 10. Well, you can't do that, you know what I mean? Because when you think about that, you're subconsciously gonna pull auto. You should just sometimes you just gotta go aim for that spot. So, but I think this is.
I talked to Chris Hacker about that. It's like, we talk about. I asked him, do you practice shooting 14s? Because he's in a shoot off quite a bit. I mean, you got to know where they're at on the target. Know where how you hold on them, things like that. And he goes, you just get a number and you aim right at it like it's the most perfect number you've ever got in your life. I mean, you just aim hard at it and you go for it. Like you can't second guess yourself. So So again, it was a learning experience.
Right. Well, I watched you and you seemed to do really good. So, and that was really cool. I don't travel a lot for the to see a shoot off, and that was really cool. So I'm glad local places are starting to do that and bring people, to more to shoots and all that. So
yeah. Well, you did. I think you did the video for the 5-spot shoot and stuff.
Yeah.
This past winter, and I've hosted some smackdowns at Oakland County, and we shoot them at some indoor tournaments around the state. And I think that's literally some of the best. If you're in the competitive side of archery, that's some of the best atmosphere that you can get. It's a lot like shooting free throws with the game on the line, national championship or world championship on the line. Like you can't simulate that feeling of pressure and the atmosphere. So these smackdowns and stuff that we host, I mean, that's the closest I can get to a shoot down with some of the best in the world. And we get some really good guys here in Michigan. So to sit there and go toe to toe with them, even if it's at 20 yards, but you're trying to hit a penny or a dime, I mean, you can't miss. And so to have that kind of pressure and stuff and continually put yourself in those situations has made me grow so much. And I know people around me that talk about it too, that, you got to put yourself in those situations if you're going to try to grow and make yourself something in the sport. So, continually trying to push yourself and put yourself in those situations is key.
Yeah, and I had one buddy, he shot a clean round in that tournament at Oakland, and he lost by X count with a hunting comp, and I was just like, it's got to be so devastating to shoot such a clean round, and then you just get blown out by X's and all that. And I mean, it's such a challenge, but you got to put yourself in them uncomfortable situations to better yourself. So.
Yep. Yeah. Exactly.
But I think we had some pretty good stuff. I think if you just want to just introduce yourself, and we'll just kind of edit it in there and all this. I think everything we've been recording for like 10 minutes already, but I'll probably just like.
I figured.
Yeah, it's already some great stuff. So I mean,
All right. Yeah. So you want to like start off name and location?
Yeah, for sure. You just go your way.
All right. My name's Rob Yahrmarkt. I currently live in White Lake, Michigan. Been doing archery. I've been hunting for 15 years now, 20 years, since I was like 14, 15 years old. That was back before they made those age adjustments. I think now you can hunt when you're like 12, or as long as you got supervision.
Yeah, my kid's 6, and I'm trying to convince him to shoot a crossbow lethally enough that we can take him out. So, yeah, as long as
they didn't have that back when I was 12 years old was the age for a compound, and I don't think you could hunt with a crossbow. And then my first year able to hunt was when I was 14 at rifle camp at deer camp. So I've been doing the hunting thing for 20 some years now, and then picked up a bow when I was actually a senior in high school. So I picked up a bow actually really late compared to some of my friends that have been bow hunting a long time, and did the whole bow hunting thing for a while. And then a good buddy of mine, I worked in a shop here in Eastern Michigan for about a year when I moved back from North Dakota. And then, so of course you're in a shop setting, people are talking about, hunting, of course, but then the target archery, side of things got introduced to me, and see people aiming at spots and shooting paper and all that in the range. And so yeah, you kind of got talking about like ASA and IBO and all the differences and stuff. And of course, back then I'm sitting there, I'm not judging yardage. Like, why? I got a rangefinder. Like, why would I want to judge yardage? So I knew IBO right away wasn't the thing for me. So, a couple of the guys have told me about ASA and stuff. And then I finally got introduced to it, invited to go shoot a indoor ASA at West Michigan Archery Center in Rockford. So yeah, I went to that, and of course did absolutely terrible. I tried to hit the kill zone, or where I would think I would kill every animal, and that's not where scoring rings and stuff are at most of the time. So it threw me for a loop, that first time. But I shot with who became a good buddy of mine. His name's Chad Bennett. He was a pro at the time for Matthews in the known category. And so, yeah, he kind of took me under his wing a little bit for a while, him and his now wife, Michelle. So, yeah, they showed me kind of target archery and 3D archery and stuff, and what all the equipment and stuff was, and why they shot long bars and magnification in their scopes. And I basically got hooked after shooting a couple tournaments with him.
You want to know a funny story? He's the reason why I did my first 3D shoot too. I met him all the way up in Petoskey, Michigan on a job, and he convinced me to go. Yep, he made me go to my first 3D shoot. Did awful too. Shot the wrong target on the line. Did terrible, but yeah, he's the same reason why I started 3D too.
How did you shoot the wrong target?
Yeah. Well, because at some targets you go through the line twice, and one time you shoot target 2, and then the next time you shoot like target like 11, because there's only 15 spots and it's 30 targets. Well, I shot 2 like twice or whatever. So that was
it gets confusing. Indoor can get confusing.
Dude, and the line, that's the first time I ever shot a tournament, and it was on a line. That was like the scariest thing. You're like trying to bump people and all that and stuff. So
yeah, I've only shot indoor once, so I was a little concerned. I thought you were outdoors shooting at targets, like you just turned the wrong way and blasted away.
No. But sorry to interrupt.
Yeah, it gets confusing. No, it's good, man. I love Chad to death. Yeah. I actually miss shooting with him. I know he's taken some time away from the sport and spending some time traveling with his wife, and I think he does dirt bikes and mountain biking now. And so yeah, but he was a big influence on me. I mean, he's such a great guy, but yeah, he really got me started on the right track and taught me a ton. Man, he was my go-to text. Hey, what do I do about this tuning? And I started to try to understand. How to get things better and make myself better. And he was always my first call or first text, and he answered every single question. I mean, he was, he's a big influence on getting me started. So, and then, after I started kind of picking up the ASA stuff, really enjoyed the indoor thing. And then I think that following year I decided to do, the outdoor season, and kind of got hooked. I spent a lot of time at long range archery in Holland when I was living over in West Michigan. I'm originally from Grand Rapids area, just north of Grand Rapids, up in Sparta, Rockford area. But when I was working out in the Lakeshore area, I spent a lot of time at long range, and a lot of the guys in there were shooting 3D and knew of target archery. And so I picked up a ton from Dylan and Dustin, Brandon. And so I kind of got really, really into it once I started shooting for long range and, competing almost every weekend with ASA and IAA and going from there. So yeah, it's kind of catapulted me all to where I'm at now. And not that I'm at the highest of highs and, beating Danny and Levi at the world level, but, I'm ready for the challenge next year. I'm going to be turning professional. And so I'm really looking forward to stepping on a stake with those guys or getting the opportunity to shoot against them.
That's amazing. So this year you ran, was it semi-pro? Is that what it's classified as?
Yeah.
And then next year you're making the leap?
Yep. Yeah, semi-pro is basically that we shot the same courses that the pros did. It's the same 50-yard stake, unknown, it's same speed requirements. Literally everything as far as the tournament goes is the same as the pros. It's just the entry fees less, not as much of a, financial commitment. The one thing that did frustrate me this year that I didn't run into last year is that they would change courses around in between when the pros would shoot them and when I would shoot them. They would go out and change some of the targets around, and that got really frustrating because I wanted to gauge how my weekend would have went if I would have shot professionally. Where would I have finished, if I would have shot in the pro class? And so it's not the same.
Right.
Even if they changed two targets, right? Those two targets could have completely changed how I would have finished or how I would have scored or anything like that. So, it threw a little bit of that in there that I was like, well, I would have finished here in the pro class, but it's not actually the same. So,
Right.
That got a little frustrating. But yeah, it was for the most part same experience. I'm just now going to go toe to toe with the best there is and pay a bunch of money to do it.
Right. Yeah, and some of them tournaments are not local to us. They're pretty far commute and all that. So
yeah, I've made the commitment, and my wife's been amazing in her support. I know it gets frustrating to her because the worst thing in the world is that if the rest of your family is not in the sport, they don't put us in locations that are real family oriented. We're out in the middle of nowhere in small towns where there's not a lot to do. There's hotels and food. That's really about it.
Right.
Foley, Alabama, our first tournament of the year, is probably the best family site that we have because it's on the ocean, right there on Gulf Shores, and ton of stuff to do. So it's a good spring break trip and kind of kick off the year type of thing. But that's literally the only place that I would be like, yeah, honey, come with me.
Right.
This is a good time. The rest of it, you're just hanging out in a hotel, unless you get an Airbnb or something out on a lake or whatever.
Yeah. Hey, honey, I'm gonna hang out in the hotel for about 3 or 4 days while I go shoot. And you got a young child too, right?
Yes. Yep. I have a 1-year-old daughter, a little older than 1-year-old. So that's thrown a loop into things. But again, I've pleaded with my wife, and I gave up fishing. I mean, my boat is up at my parents'. I used to hunt, fish, golf, archery. I mean, I don't sit still. I left my boat up at my parents' place up north. So I think I went fishing 3 times. That's the least I've ever gone fishing in my entire life. And then I think I've golfed, maybe 4 or 5 times. I've given up some of these other hobbies to really make the commitment to practice or just to be at home more. So when I do go away for, 3-4 days in a national tournament, that I haven't been gone every weekend leading up to that,
Right.
So, yeah, and I try to only shoot, a local tournament if it was close to home where I could, make a 45-minute drive, go shoot for a couple hours and come right back home, half a day type stuff. So, but again, sometimes I'll tell her I'm home at 3:00 and I'm usually not home till 5. She's pretty lenient when it comes to some of that stuff. So, again, I couldn't do any of this without her support, especially with our daughter now. And so, so she's been very understanding, and I try to do my best to be around more and make some sacrifices, even though I'd love to be fishing or love to be golfing. So,
yeah. I mean, they basically make a lot of stuff possible for us. I think that's the most undervalued tool, or not tool. Sorry, I don't mean to call my wife a tool, but I'm just saying
things are gonna go south quick.
Yeah, good thing she's working upstairs, but they definitely help out so much, and it's a bit of a sacrifice. Sometimes you're like, oh well, I want to do this and this, but you got to pick and choose. So, but.
Yeah, they're like the, we put sponsors and stuff on our backs of our jerseys and all of this, or, talk about, tag people in our social media posts and, all the people that do support us. But it's the people at home, I couldn't literally, even if I had my daughter, right, you couldn't do this stuff without my wife, or family. Even, my in-laws and stuff let me have targets in the backyard. They're 10 minutes away from me, and I live in a condo association right now, and they've got probably a 2-acre backyard, so I can leave 4 or 5 targets out there and go pop over and shoot anytime I want, no questions asked. I leave targets out, so it's they have friends over and they're like, "Why are there fun targets out in your backyard?" And they got to explain that my son-in-law is an archer and comes over and practices and stuff. Right. So yeah, without those people that they don't get a whole lot of recognition sometimes. So, but they literally, without them, you can't do this stuff.
For sure.
Yeah.
I thought you were going to say something.
No, not yet. I mean, I have the only difference is my wife just allows me to go on ridiculous hunts all the time. So like from October till January, and then I just got a dog. So my wife is just like, I'm just gone for like 6 months out of the year, and she's just completely fine with it.
That's good. I mean, hey, if you got that relationship and that balance and stuff, I mean, even now hunting season's coming up, right? Like September for me is probably like the only time that I have off. I mean, but I haven't scouted any deer, any scouting this year at all. I mean, I hunt mostly public land here in Michigan. I went to Missouri last year and shot a giant. I mean, so I've just been running and gunning when it comes to hunting. So it's like even this next month, I might go scout for a day on some public, like some areas that I kind of already know anyway that I've scouted in the years past. But even that, I'm like trying to stay home the next couple weekends and knowing that October 1st is on the horizon, and I'm going to pick and choose some nights and a weekend or two to, get out and go chase deer. So yeah, it just doesn't stop. You go from target archery right to hunting, right back to target archery, starting again in like December, January. So yeah, it's a never ending season. So
do you want to break down that Missouri hunt real quick? Like what was the process of that? I mean, was it all DIY and all that?
Yeah. So obviously Missouri is like, a top 10 state in the country for big deer every year. And actually a good buddy of mine, Chris Kuhn, that I've worked and hunted with for, 4 or 5 years now. He has a lease in Missouri. He's gone down there and killed some really big deer on his lease. And he's probably 2 years ago, he said, hey, listen, I'm going to hunt my lease, but there's public, 20 minutes away. So just come down and stay with me at the Airbnb. And, I'll hunt my lease. You just go hunt public, and maybe I'll come hunt public with you too. But this was for muzzleloader late season, like last week of December, in between Christmas and New Year's. We planned this trip, and, Missouri tags are fairly cheap. I think my muzzleloader tag for out of state was $150. Airbnb was $100 for the weekend. Food, gas. I mean, it was less than $400 or $500 for 4 days of hunting. So, but yeah, sure enough, I went down there that time. We had perfect conditions except for an ice storm that rolled through like a day before we got there. So the foot of snow that was on the ground basically turned to a sheet of ice on top. So you couldn't sneak in anywhere without just blowing out an area completely. So, but I did end up getting a shot at like a 150 with my muzzleloader out in a bean field. We had a ton of food around us still. So it was awesome. It was a cool first trip to go and kind of see, like, yeah, this is Missouri. I saw a couple of big deer, and my jaw dropped when I saw this deer from across this field. I mean, it just a true like giant, and I'm sitting there, biggest deer I've ever seen. I mean, this one right here, I killed in Michigan. That's a 150, but this one was just so much bigger. I mean, it was 150, 160. It was big deer, but I think I ended up taking a shot at him with my muzzleloader at like 150 yards and missed. And I was like, crap. So never ended up seeing him. Another guy in our camp shot a decent deer, decent 10 point like the next day. But so it was just cool to get that experience. So I'm kind of rambling, but I knew right away, like I wanted to grab my 2 cousins that I hunt with and shoot with a ton, and just go on a public land trip. We'll figure it out. So as soon as I got back from that, I kind of started doing some planning. Got on Onyx, I wanted to find a town that we could stay in, but that had a lot of different pieces of public in case we went to a place that was a bust or there was a ton of people. And so I found a good situation to where we could stay in a hotel, and there was probably 8 pieces of public within 45 minutes. So that's what we did. I grabbed my 2 cousins and we went first week of November last year, which now I'm finding is an absolute mistake. So yeah, we showed up on this piece
really
of public.
Busy. Is it just
crazy busy?
Oh,
yeah, I mean, we went in. I did a bunch of e-scouting and stuff with some topographical maps, and kind of just figured, hey, we'll just run and gun it. We'll find deer. We'll figure it out. And plus, it's the rut. We figure, hey, deer are going to be moving. One of us is going to stumble along something. So we got to this first piece of public, which is the largest piece that was on the map in the area, and got in there an hour and a half early, got set up. I saw a bunch of deer already with my headlamp and kicked a bunch up. And I'm like, all right, this is where we're going to stop and set up, and got all settled in, took my time. 30 minutes before daylight, man, it was like a highway of headlamps just coming at us. We could see, I think we probably saw a dozen headlamps, like 30, 40 minutes before daylight. A guy set up in a climber 75 yards north of me, and I hit him with my headlamp a couple times, and he kicked up a bunch of deer that were still around me. Like, so I got in quick and quiet to where if he wouldn't have shown up, I would have seen more deer than I did that morning. But he got in, I hit him with my headlamp a couple times, and of course you can't tell depth really well at that time, and so he just set up. And so I'm sitting there, it's getting daylight, looking around, and I finally decided to start moving a little bit. I took my binoculars and I looked back over. This guy's in his climber, 75, 80 yards from me. And I could see him, playing his day. I'm like, crap. So I ended up seeing deer down at the bottom of this ridge. And I don't know if he ever did. I don't think he did. But I knew right away, like, okay, we got to figure out a different plan. So, two cousins and stuff. We ended up going about another 45 minutes east to another piece. And again, never scouted it. Went in completely dark, at 2 hours before daylight. All e-scouted. Got to a river that on the map there was a bridge to get across. When we got there, it was all under construction. No way to get across. So it completely threw a kink into our plans on where we were going. It really cut the piece of property almost into a third. And so, we kind of threw a big kink into things, just set up some stands quick, ended up seeing a couple of deer, but then we didn't know how deep this river was. Come to find out, it was like 6 inches deep. It was just like a really wide creek. So once we figured that out, we actually used that because the wind the entire time, used that, crossed the creek, got to the rest of the property. Last day, I hadn't seen any bucks. We had seen a couple of does. I had saw a couple of those. My two other cousins sat on food. There was a lot of standing corn and beans in this area, even for November. And so those guys had seen some bucks, but just didn't get a shot at anything. And I made a play to go sit closer to my cousin who had been seeing deer. So I went in deeper into a swamp on the edge of a bean field. And this bean field kind of was on a plateau, and then it dropped off like 15 feet down into the swamp. So I actually sat down into the swamp, texted my wife. It's 65 degrees at this point. On the last day at like 3:00 in the afternoon, I'm texting my wife. She goes, it sucks. You're going to come home with nothing. Da, 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 da. It wasn't 30 minutes later, and I saw this body moving through this swamp, and I just kind of peek out around this tree that was in front of me, and all I saw was antlers.
No.
And I said, holy crap. It was like a no-brainer type thing. Just grab your bow, get ready. And I was 10 foot off the ground in my custom gear stand. I was only 2 sticks high, and he started at 30 yards, and I drew before he even got to there. I knew I had ranged some areas. I'm like, okay, I should be fine with where my pin's set now. And I drew, and they walked right at me. So I'm holding a draw for probably a minute and a half, and I'm shooting a TRX 34. I think with 80% let off at 73 pounds or something like that. So it got to a point it started to get uncomfortable, and I'm shooting my hinge. I always hunt with a hinge as well, and so he started coming at me, and then he kind of just veered off just a little bit. I shot him at 10 yards. I was almost like eyes to eye with him. I mean, he never even knew I was there. So yeah, I smashed him, and he ran 20 yards and piled up. So it was unbelievable 30 seconds to have it all come unfold like that, especially when I was just really kind of mentally giving up on the trip. It was 65 degrees. It was November 3rd. It was 3:00 in the afternoon. I was sweating to death, like just not normal rut weather and rut activity that we had, thought we would be seeing. So yeah, it happened very fast, like that always does.
What did it score?
I got to get it back from my taxidermist, but Spencer, my cousin, and I measured it at 163 and 2/8, I think. So
Monster.
Yeah, I can send you guys a photo. So it's on my social media. It ended up 14 points, split G2s. I mean, it was just a great basket rack, but like a tight, tall. Again, I was losing it in the tree stand,
Yeah.
and I had no cell service really. Like I'm trying to get a hold of like my cousins and my wife and my dad, like but I'm in and out of service and stuff. I literally am holding my phone, like trying to just get a bar or two to get service, and like what just happened? Like I'm losing my mind in my tree stand.
Yep.
So, but also trying not to blow a hunt for my cousin who's 150, 200 yards
Yep.
away. I mean, we did a grunt test, like how close are you? And I hit the grunt a couple times and he could hear me.
Wow.
So, yeah.
So what was
try
the
not to
reasoning for
limit.
you being like 10 foot up? Was it because you didn't want to get skylined, or was it because of that ridge right there that was up there?
So some of it was, so I sat in a 3 trunk tree, kind of almost like this, and I actually sat in the middle one. And there was really, it got kind of skinny and there really wasn't much up above. So yeah, I probably could have got skylined, but I've been really kind of experimenting with that lower level hunting, that 10 to 12 foot range, carry less sticks, get up a little quicker. And this is honestly before I even started listening to Cody DeQuisto talk about him, hunting that 7 to 8 foot, 10 foot range, really, really low. But so, yeah, I'd started trying to get comfortable doing that or kind of feeling it out, and it never really gotten busted or anything. So, yeah, I don't know. I probably was just hot and sweaty and just said, screw it. And, it set my stand and it was like, all right, we're good. Plus, I think just, again, the contour of the tree, I knew I could blend in fairly well at that point. But I left all my heavyweight. It was 30 degrees that morning. So I had my good heavier weight type stuff on for that morning sit. And I wasn't even planning on sitting all day. We started seeing deer at 10 a.m. And so my cousins and I were texting like, okay, I guess we're going to sit all day. I had half a Gatorade and a granola bar left for the rest of the day. So like wrestling mindset kind of came back in. I was like, hey, ration this out and like survive the rest of the day. So yeah, but again, at the 65 degrees that afternoon, like I really think that deer, I was sitting on the edge of a creek, like reservoir that had some standing water. I really do think that deer was coming to get a drink at that time of the day. So again, that was just dumb luck. I can't say I scouted it and I found this great sign. I knew where there's food. I knew where it was thick, a little bit of water, and some area that I could see pretty well. And maybe I was going to catch a deer going out to feed, before coming out of the swamp before, dark. And that's really all I was trying to take some knowledge with me and go after it like that.
Yeah. I mean, the true testament of that is like you had a plan and it went to crap quick and you just kept going from the fly. Because a lot of people, when they have a plan, it doesn't go together. They just start pity partying themselves and then they just keep, getting in their head and, it happens to all of us, but like they just basically count themselves out before it actually is over. And it sounds like you guys adjusted on the fly pretty good. I mean, how did everybody else's trip turn out?
Well, it's funny you mentioned that. So my one cousin Nolan, loved him to death and stuff, but he hadn't hunted a whole lot of public land. And I had known, hunt public land, if you've done it enough, even the first couple of times, right, you're going to run into people.
Yeah.
I don't care if you've scouted it. There's just nothing you can do. And so that really kind of gives you a different mindset of, hey, I got to be flexible. I got to be able to run and gun. I got to be able to not let my spirits get down if things happen again. It pisses us all off.
Yeah.
You get set up in the stand, you get in there early, you do everything right, and then Joe Schmo shows up and sits 60 yards from you, or walks right past you down a trail or something. So yeah, a couple of times he was not. He got flustered pretty quick, and it's just like, okay, man, hey, like we gotta just relax. We'll wait till daylight. We'll hunt it for a little bit, and then we'll make a new plan. Like we'll figure it out. And so yeah, it's my experience of hunting some Michigan public land where you run into 100 people a year, helps kind of keep us at bay. But those guys saw deer. Nolan got the shaft on again, public land pressure. He had a really good 9-point that he was going to shoot coming his way. And then a guy was running his hunting dog at like 5:30, and so that deer got busted from a couple hundred yards away. That deer could hear dog and Nolan could see it up in his tree stand. And, but yeah, he was on a path right to him, he said, and just got bad luck. So yeah, they both ate tags. I couldn't have done the trip without him. I mean, I got a bad right hip that I got to have replaced, and this deer was 1.5 miles, 2 miles back from the easiest access point. So I brought a deer cart with us, thank God, but those two drug that thing out for me. I mean, that was a big deer too, so I could have never done this, trip DIY independently by any means. So
Deer carts are lifesavers.
Oh man, the hawk crawler, like independent axles and stuff. I mean, we were walking through this bean field. I mean, again, you couldn't have, a sled dragging that thing out. I mean, we would have died. It was such a long trek.
Yeah, I just got a deer cart and I'm looking forward to using it. I'm so sick of dragging deer out. It's not fun.
And if you're in great shape and all that stuff, cool. Like I used to be that guy. I used to help my dad and uncles drag all their deer out when I was in the best shape of my life. Like, oh, this is nothing, no big deal. Strap it to my back and take off. But not anymore, man. I mean, no. I would physically hurt myself, pull something. I mean, I hate to admit, I am getting older and stuff. I still have the mentality and the heart of a 20-year-old. Like, yeah, I can do it. But I'm realizing, hey, with my hip and back and some stuff, I got to go home to a family. I got a job. Like I can't be out just doing some crazy crap that my body's just not used to anymore.
Right.
So I guess we'll focus back a little bit more onto the archery stuff. So I guess we'll talk a little bit. So one big topic that we talk about, we haven't talked about a bunch, but I hear about often is arrow setups and heavy versus light. So, in your opinion, I mean,
you're gonna get a bunch of people mad at
that.
So okay.
I know. So we'll go. I know you have a lot of experience target shooting, but is there a difference target shooting to deer hunting in your preference in heavy versus light?
It really just depends on the type of target shooting. A heavy arrow is more forgiving, typically, especially if you put more point weight up on it. So when I'm shooting indoor 20-yard, spots, most people are using a really heavy arrow, not obnoxiously heavy, but like I'm shooting. I think my gold tip triple X's are like 560 grains with like 200 grains up front. But you're literally lobbing those things in there. I mean, your speed is not an issue. You want accuracy, 100% accuracy and forgiveness when it comes to like a target setup. When I go out for 3D. I'm more or less trying to, especially with the unknown stuff, I have to keep speed in mind. We are shooting outside, so I got to think about, wind drift a little bit. And so I'm not putting like FOC into any of these calculations, right? But I am trying to figure out what's the most forgiving setup, how much point weight can I run and still get this arrow to be really accurate. I don't want to have a really light point weight because of glance outs and stuff too that can play an effect in 3D. So we're really trying to find that perfect recipe for like 3D arrows. But when it comes to hunting, I don't want to say a light, but I'm a lighter guy. The heavy arrow stuff, it's a fad. I think some guys again might not believe that or might not feel that way. I think. The guy Ranch Fairy gets talked about. I don't know the guy at all. I've never really even watched one of his videos, but I like the Hunting Public. Those guys have associated with him and talked about some heavier arrow setups and single bevel broadheads and all of this stuff. And I think for whitetail, antelope, mule deer, those type of what I would call like a fast twitch animal, you can't have a slow arrow. 20 yards, sure. When that arrow's probably going to get there quick, but that 30-yard range, 40-yard range and stuff, if you got a slow arrow, that's a lot of time for that deer to move. And we've all seen videos of deer ducking and moving. And so, my current setup is I'm shooting Venom 30 at 72 pounds. I actually just got done tuning and doing a lot of this stuff, playing with some arrow setups. This is probably the most intensive year I've done with some arrow setups as far as testing goes. But I'm actually shooting an Airstrike 300 spine with 180 grains up front. But this is an arrow that's built for FOC. And again, I'm not shooting it because of the FOC, but it just happens to be a nice feature per se, because you've got the insert and it's got a ballistic collar. So before you even put a broadhead on it at 100 grains, you've already got 40 grains up front versus just your normal 17 to 20 grain aluminum insert. So you've got that ballistic collar up there, which add some. So even if I hadn't added any extra weight to it, I'd still be at 140 grains up front, which is pretty good, I would say, FOC wise. Again, it's not something I even calculate or care about. It just happens to be a perk. But then I actually added 40 grains of fact weight to the back of that insert. So I'm running a fairly heavy FOC arrow, 180 grains up front, but the arrow itself only weighs 430 grains. I have a fairly short arrow because I don't have a very long draw length. I have a 27.5-inch draw length. I think my arrow carbon to carbon is 25.5 inches. So you slap a knock on there, on a broadhead, you're back up to like a 27-inch full length arrow, 27.5-inch full length arrow. And yeah, I think I'm more of a speed. I've learned this talking to some guys and listening to some of the best. Again, I like to go back to Levi Morgan, not to be a fanboy, but again, the guy's done it at the competitive level, but he's got one of the best hunting shows out there that's ever been produced. I mean, he's killing giant deer all the time. He's taking his target archery knowledge and tuning and arrow builds, all that stuff, and applying it to whitetail hunting. And so if you've got a guy that's killing deer, and rarely do you ever see him make a bad shot or have to not recover a deer because it ducked, or it hit him in the spine or guts, or he's, as far as we know, right? Again, he's probably not producing, but again, I'd say he's probably one of those guys that would produce a real world type TV show, like, hey, I made a bad shot, or hey, this deer ducked it.
Right.
Just don't see it. And I think a lot of that is too because he has good enough speed in his arrow. He's got well placed shots and he's accurate, and he makes good ethical shots as well. So yeah, I've been staying right in that 280 to 290 feet per second range. So I'll take my bow and then build an arrow off of that to try to get into that range. And some of it too is just my own little quirk. I like shooting long distance. So if I feel at that speed, I can get a tape that will give me enough clearance on my scope with my rest and everything to shoot out to 100 yards. So I can really see if that arrow is flying great, accurate out to that distance. Not that I'd ever take an animal that far, but if you can stay in that speed range, you can usually get a tape that allows you to shoot those longer distances too. So yeah, but again, I'm probably rambling, sorry. But I'm more middle to lighter weight. Again, I really think if you listen to guys like Aaron Snyder, Levi, Tim Gillingham, Kyle Douglas, these are all guys that have been on Aaron's podcast, Kafaru podcast. I mean, they all say the same thing. Accuracy is king.
Yeah.
You've got to be able to shoot an accurate arrow. And a slow arrow can be accurate, but there's too many other variables too. That deer could be moving, all of this stuff. I mean, so I'd rather get that arrow get there pretty quick before that deer has time to react.
Right. And I think Aaron always says too, like, why don't you stop worrying about how heavy your arrow is and actually just go shoot your bow and make sure you're hitting the spot you're hitting. So
exactly. I think I just shared a meme on Facebook the other day that said the hardest pill to swallow, or like a hard pill to swallow or something, is stop worrying about FOC and worrying about accuracy and where you're hitting deer. I mean, I think that's just so true, especially in these last couple of years. I think Joel Maxfield, he's put out a ton of studies that, again, Aaron Snyder and Levi, all these top guys have referenced. I mean, he's done the science to debunk the heavy arrow penetration tests and all of this stuff to really back that up, that, hey, a good, accurate, medium weight, decent speed arrow is doing just as much to that animal as a super heavy, slow arrow. So you've got some science now backing it up, which is really cool. So yeah, which I've always those reports get pretty in depth. So I'll just go with what works for me, and that's where I've been with a lot of it. So
yeah, and I always people well, what if you hit that front shoulder or knuckle, and why are you preparing for the worst? I'm not going to put a roll cage in my truck just in case I might crash it one day. I mean, I'm worried about just getting to point A and point B, so don't prepare for the worst. I mean, so I think
exactly. And I mean, I can understand that. Just in case I get the shoulder, I can understand that. But even if you just put, again, my arrow that I'm shooting now, that's going to be at 280, with a Schwacker on it, that'll blow right through a shoulder. I can almost guarantee it. I'm not going to go take a frontal through the brisket, but if I happen to clip that shoulder, I'm not worried about it. I know for a fact that my arrow last year on that Missouri buck, he was quartered to me, and I drew it right through the shoulder, right through the heart, at 10 yards, and I heard a big loud crack. I mean, I know it went through that shoulder because when I gutted it, I found a bunch of pigment and bone, but and that arrow didn't pass all the way through. It got about 3/4 of the way in, and then popped right back out. And again, it went 20 yards. It got through that shoulder, got in the vitals, and came right back out. But it did its job. And so, again, if you're accurate with your shot, that's all that really matters at the end of the day.
So are you using swackers? Is that what you just said? Or
Yeah. So I was on their field staff and stuff last year. I think I didn't really apply again this year. Just I don't post enough hunting content. I mean, I'm doing target archery 9 months out of the year, so I don't post enough broadhead and hunting content. But again, I was using their stuff before I got on their staff, and I'm still using them now. I use the Levi Morgan 261s. I think it's a 2-inch cut, 100 grain broadhead. I really love them because again, his selling point or their selling point is you can lock down the blades and practice with that exact broadhead, and then change the locking pin and go out to the field and hunt with that exact one. So you know exactly where that arrow should be hitting with that broadhead on it. So
yeah, my favorite
replace blades. I mean, they're good.
Yeah, my favorite thing is you can get them at Walmart. So just say worst case scenario or something, like I don't know, like you forgot them at home, and then there's a Walmart usually everywhere is where you go. You can just get them right there. Because if you have like anything special, like an iron will or something crazy, you ain't gonna get them in time. Especially during.
Yeah, that's 1,000%. Yeah, I never really thought of that. Like I guess if you happen to miss a couple times a weekend, bury them in the dirt and bend them up. I mean, yeah, you can make a trip, or hell, you just forget them. I keep mine in a case. I mean, once it's hunting season, I'll really lock down an arrow and a quiver, but I always keep extras in a case. Well, if I happen to forget that, yeah, you're exactly right. You can go to a Walmart and pick those up, no problem. So right. That is a good point. So, but they fly really, really well. Again, I was going to go out and shoot tonight and have a couple of on, make sure they were hitting with my field points. I mean, I have all the confidence in the world they will. So, I was going to send them at long distance and see where they actually landed.
Yeah, I'm jumping on a couple of fads this year. So I did switch to a heavier arrow. I would say it's more middle class. I think I'm around 440 total, and then I only have like 50. I added 50 grains up front, not including the tip. But then I'm also going to go with the single bevel head. I don't have a good excuse for it. It's just I've been a big mechanical guy for a long time because I never – and we'll talk about it, but they sell mechanicals as out of the box, they'll fly like a field tip, right? So I never really spent a ton of time tuning the bow. Like I was just like, well, I can just throw these mechanicals on. And thankfully I've always lucked into the fact that I haven't had them off. And when I was younger, I had a fixed blade that I threw on there and didn't practice with, and it flew way different at deer, and I couldn't figure out why, but now looking back, I know why. Like I needed to tune my bow, but so now I want to switch this single bevel and then the little bit heavier arrow. Partly I would say is because of that, like if I mess up kind of thing, right? Because I've had it happen with mechanicals where I have messed up and went too far forward with a lighter arrow and a mechanical head, and well, I ended up having to tell a story about a deer that walked away, right? So I don't know if it'll make a difference, but this year that's kind of how I went on where I was going to go as far as arrow setup. So that's kind of why I asked, what your arrow setup is, because before I met Joe, my buddies had the same knowledge I did. Like we didn't really know. We just learned from Facebook, and Facebook gives you some good knowledge and some bad knowledge. So
it really depends on it really depends on who you're following and who you're listening to.
Yeah. I should introduce them to archery talk forums and all that for them. You can go on there.
So
you just join any Facebook group. I mean, it even gets in the mobile hunting stuff. I mean, yeah, everybody's got an opinion.
Yeah. So I mean, I think it's a great resource, but you got to pick through. Mm-hmm. You might learn a couple bad lessons on the way. So no, I appreciate you sharing the at least your opinion on heavier versus lighter arrows. I know we've brought other people on here that swear by the heavier arrow. I don't know a ton of people that are swearing by super light arrows, but at least not shooting at animals. But
I think it really just depends on the situation. Again, you got to build an arrow to the bow, you got to build an arrow to the person, and build an arrow to the game that you're hunting, right? I mean, you got an elk, right? They're really not that, as far as I know, they're not that fast. They're not like an antelope or a deer that's just going to duck your arrow super crazy, quick, right? But they are agile, and so again, you might be able to get away with a heavier arrow because you want to pass through and really get through there. But again, I've heard plenty of people talk like, yeah, I've shot an elk with a 400 grain arrow at 300 feet per second. Like, put a good shot on it, and you're not going to have an issue. So it really just depends. And again, listening to people like Tim Gillingham and Aaron Snyder, guys that have tested and tested and tested, that's the biggest thing I'll ever tell anybody. Shoot your bow, test this stuff, make sure you're accurate. And that's the one thing I'll tell you is, like, if you're shooting that fixed blade, broadhead, make sure you got a bear shaft that is a bullet hole, and that's a good place to start. Make sure that thing is accurate out to 50, 60 yards and hitting with your field points. So you're as accurate as possible, even if your furthest shot might be 30. Just make sure that stuff is just so dead on. So yeah, when you get out there in the heat of the moment, you're not doing what you used to do with a fixed blade. And what I used to do, the same thing, man. My first bow was a Darton, and didn't a local shop tuned it and stuff. I threw some 100 grain thunderheads on there because that's what my dad had in the case, and I'm watching this arrow just dart every single one. Field over here,
Yeah.
broadheads over here. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, well, might as well move my sight over and move it down a little bit, and so I sighted in for my broadheads, which I think most people have done in the past or don't know enough about
I
tuning.
just threw my fixed away and went and got mechanical. That's how I fixed my problem.
Right? Yeah.
But
So,
no, I mean,
and I don't even think, it's, there's a whole new, like, learning curve now of tuning, and YouTube's great, so you can learn this stuff at home and all that stuff. So, yeah, the big thing, man, if you're going to shoot those fixed blades, just make sure everything's tuned right and tuned perfectly.
Yeah, well, I learned that. So last year was the first year I really tried the single bevels, and we went down to Kansas, and I started shooting my bow, and I was like, man, like, these broadheads were like dead on, but now they're way off. Well, then it turns out that on the trip, something got loose. I tightened it up, and immediately I learned another valuable lesson. If you're going to shoot practice tips and broadheads, aim at different dots, because I peeled off like two of my fletchings like immediately, and I was like, okay, well, at least they're shooting together, but yeah, I'm down 2 arrows now. Because broadhead will slice the fletching pretty quick. So
Yep. Yeah, I enjoy fletching arrows sometimes, but not for my own stupidity or aiming at the same dot. Yeah. And I guess if I'm doing it at distance, right, and it's like, okay, that's a good thing. The arrows are, grouping that closely at 70, 80, 100 yards, whatever. But if I'm doing stupid crap at 40 and 50, trying to hit, even my target arrows, and I'm smashing them and blowing up knocks and stuff, I'm like, come on. They're grouping. Leave it alone.
Yeah.
So you're fine.
So yeah. I mean, when it comes to tuning, I guess we'll kind of move into that. Like, what do you think is the most important part of tuning your hunting bow? I don't know a ton about archery, so I guess I don't know how, like, the benefits there. But I mean, as far as tuning your hunting bow, like, what are you looking to do? I mean, some of the tactics and strategies behind why you're doing some of the things you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, a well-tuned bow is going to send an arrow, straight out of that bow. I mean, it's going to be accurate. You just got to sight in to be accurate. You have to be accurate yourself. There's a lot of, as humans, there's a lot of, outside factors, right? But if you can get the machine to be repetitive and continually send that arrow out of it every single time perfectly, right? The rest of it really just falls on you to make a good shot. So yeah, I mean, when it comes to hunting, and just, I guess, any of our archery stuff, I mean, your draw length is so important. And I'm finding that as my years and I gain more experience, really down to even an eighth of an inch, a 16th of an inch, twisting a cable, one direction or the other, when you're really messing with stuff. I mean, I can feel that now. I know that I just put a twist in the cable and can feel that extra little bit of draw length, just in where I anchor, and D-loop length, all of these certain things that you can play with to make little adjustments and really get that thing dialed in and get that bow fitting you perfectly. But having a good shop, of people that are knowledgeable with the basics, and they're like actually knowledgeable with stuff. Again, I just set up a bow for a buddy of mine out in Iowa because he just said that he's got nobody to go to. Like, Iowa's the biggest hunting state in the world, and he said there's not a decent pro shop within an hour and a half to 2 hours of him. He goes, if you want to go make a killing, like, come out here and start an archery shop, a good archery shop. I was like, well, damn, that'd be fun. So, but it's like,
do you need a tech? I'll help. I'll invest in your entrepreneurship right there.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, but he's telling me that, and I'm like, man, it just blows my mind. I mean, I'm sure there's guys out there that just know enough, right? But if you're gonna have a business and be an archery tech, I would just hope that you really know your stuff, and you're setting draw lengths correctly. You're telling guys some decent form habits. Again, everybody's form could be a slight variation, but there's a lot of the same factors, anchor points and releases and all of this stuff that are somewhat the same. So yeah, I mean, your draw length is huge. Making sure you're consistent with your anchor points, whether that be your release hand on your face. I don't care where it's at. You got guys with Cam Hanes that put their thumb all the way back here. You got guys that'll just draw their knuckle and put it underneath their ear. I lock down here on my jaw. I mean, depending on the release that you're using, all of this different stuff. So, just making sure that you can be consistent with whatever you're doing. And then that way, the machine's consistent. If you're consistent, you're going to get consistent results. And that's what we're always trying to chase and fight, whether it be target archery or, we're hunting. So yeah, your draw length, dialing it into your poundage and stuff. Again, if you're over poundage on your bow, you're going to struggle with your draw and all of this stuff. And, it's really not going to be that enjoyable of an experience. So yeah, and then even getting down into like stabilization, I still don't know that much about it, but playing with weight and trying to figure out how to get that pin to sit as still as possible. So you're really just trying to get everything to fit you as best as possible. A bow and archery equipment is like the perfect pair of shoes. It's not going to fit the same person over and over and over again. I might be able to pick up my cousin Nolan. I've got his bow hanging here in my shop. Him and I are the same anchor point, same peep height, right? But his kisser button is half an inch different than mine. So I took his kisser button off because I borrowed his bow for a weekend. So like I didn't have to move his peep or anything, but like those little variances are just different between everybody. And then how you hold the bow and grip, all of this stuff just is such a big factor. So I know I kind of went down a rabbit hole there. But,
yeah, we're known for rabbit holes here, so you're right on track. Yeah,
and to reach like kind of. I know sometimes these pro shops, especially like in September, it's hard for them to give you all this stuff and, try to, when this is their busiest season, they're trying to just get a lot of people out the door. I mean, it's not like they don't care about you. It's just hard for them because this is their busy season. And how many people are going in there a week before opening season and say, hey, I need new strings on this bow or something. Like, they're like, what? I'm open all year long, and you come in a week before opening season. So, like, that's like...
The only reason you should go to an archery shop in September is to reload on the exact arrow that you've been shooting all summer because you blew them up and were busting them up and stuff, to pick up more broadheads because you want the ones you've got are dull, or, get more blades and stuff. Pick up camo, maybe get maybe a new stabilizer or something, but... Again, to go into a shop in September, like you just said, when it's their busiest time of the year, hunting season's right around the corner, they're likely not going to have the strings you need if you're getting custom strings or aftermarket strings. They got to order them. Those are going to be a couple weeks. Then they got to put them on, retune it. And you're exactly right. They're not going to be able to give you the time that you deserve as a customer. Some shops will, but then they're almost at a disadvantage because now the hour and a half that it just took them to get you set up and tuned and all this stuff, they just let 7 other customers out the door, right? They just lost $500 in gear sales or something.
Yeah.
So again, I've worked in a couple of shops. I've worked at Long Range, worked at the shop over here in Detroit. I mean, it's never going to change.
Right. Yeah.
But it's like, if I can put out the PSA of go get your new bow in February or March when they're not busy, go get your new arrows or go get refletched in June, July, when you've still got some time to go before, go get your new strings in May,
right.
So they've got time to order them and set it back up, and they can give you, all of that time that you deserve as a customer, as a paying customer, to get it tuned and get it fit and get it dialed right back in. So you're good to go come your elk trip, your out of state archery trip, whatever it might be. So yeah, it's crazy that people still show up and buy a brand new bow, 2 weeks before season, and then go drop, even if they're dropping $2,000, they're just going to go shoot, for 2 weeks. I think I could do it. I'm not the best in the world, but again, I've shot enough bows, I've shot enough archery. Yeah, I could set up a bow today and be hunting with it tomorrow morning, if I had my marks, So I've done that so many times, set up bows and stuff like that. But somebody who doesn't have a lot of experience showing up 2 weeks before season still mind boggles me.
Yeah. And the simple fact is, like, you got to support these shops because some of us don't have bow presses at home. I don't have a bow press. And then if you don't support these shops, I mean, unfortunately, we had Hunter's Den. They shut down, but they just reopened. So that was a good sign, But when that shop went down, I had one more shop. And then other than that, the closest one was like an hour and like 25 minutes. We got to get to the point like Iowa, Michigan, such a prevalent place. You're going to run out of these places if you don't support them. So you got to go to them. I mean, sometimes it's nice to order stuff offline and it comes right to your door, but sometimes you pay the extra $5 and stop in your shop and just get the arrows there or whatever. Or, if they don't have it there, then order it online or something like that. But you got to support these because. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead.
I
was just going to say, I still go buy, stuff at a couple different archery shops I'll pop into. I usually go see Jamie Drouillard down at Adams, down in Milan. If I'm ever in Holland, I'm always going to see the guys at Long Range. I miss being over there with those guys. I was in that shop every day, helping out. I was basically an employee without getting paid. I was shooting for them, so I got some discounts on stuff. But I love a shop atmosphere. I love working on bows. I love being a bow technician, which is why I've got my own shop. I work on all my friends and cousins and stuff's bows, but I still go buy stuff if I need it, or if I can't get it from Lancaster quick enough, or I still, just love being in an archery shop. So I still try to go and support, Or if I'm gonna, I got some buddies that had ranges and stuff, or that were running shops. They never charged me for range time, but I made sure to buy something. Get that money back to them somehow. Buy a T-shirt, buy a hat, just do something if they were giving me a favor. So I tried to go out of my way to throw some money at them, even if they aren't making a ton of money on range fees and all that stuff. But yeah, you're exactly right. I can't say like Detroit for anywhere else I've been. Detroit or Metro Detroit area, it's got to be the most saturated place when it comes to archery shops, though. For being such a industrial or metropolitan place, within where I live, within 45 minutes, I can be at like 6 different shops. Yeah. So it's like, and it sucks because I'd love to open my own shop someday, but it's so saturated here that I probably couldn't get bow contracts unless I wanted to sell an odd, brand or something like that. I probably, there's too many close to here that, we've already got people. We don't want to step on their toes. They've been a dealer for 20 years. So, and it's like, okay, so it's like, it's a gift and a curse. It's awesome that, I could be at a bunch of different ranges and a couple different shops really, really quick, but again, they also kind of maybe hurt each other and cannibalize each other. That there's so many that close.
Right. Well, it sounds like we got to go to Iowa.
Yeah, that's true. We'd all be super disappointed about that.
Yeah.
If I could convince my wife,
it blew my mind.
Yeah, if I could convince my wife to move to Iowa, we would be there yesterday.
Yeah, he said that, again. My buddy, his name is Rendo, and so. He said the closest place that he goes to is either the shop that the guys from THP have gone into a couple times out in Iowa that they put on their YouTube channel, or Shields. I think there's a Shields in like Nebraska or something, within like 2 hours of him. Like he has to make a trip.
He has to go a whole nother
for the
state.
day.
Yeah, that's
Right?
crazy.
Yeah, and it's like mind blowing. And so, yeah, to have to travel that far versus what we have here in Michigan, where again, within an hour you could be at another.
Yeah, I'm
6 or
already
7
bitching
shops.
that I have to drive an hour tomorrow because I'm an idiot and I'm going. I chose to go there. I have a bow shop that's only 15, 20 minutes from my house. I'm just not a big fan of the things they do, so I went to another bow shop. But yeah, an hour doesn't seem like a bad idea when you got to travel to a whole nother state to get to.
Right. Yeah. And that's the thing too. You go to people that you trust. Archery stuff and setup. If you're not knowledgeable or not knowledgeable enough, you're going to go to people that you trust. Hey, I've had great results with every bow this guy's set up for me. He's never steered me wrong. The money that I've spent with him has been worth it. So yeah, you're always going to go back to the people that you trust. I mean, I have, four shops that I have good people at that I've shot with that I know really, really well. They carry good equipment and things that I trust. So when I tell somebody, yeah, you should go pick this up. Well, where can I get it? I can usually rattle off, well, where do you live? I can usually rattle off a shop that I would trust that's fairly close. So, it's good to have those relationships and stuff too. But yeah, I've found that, I've found about 3 to 4 shops that I feel really comfortable sending people to. So that's usually where I either go spend my money or I'm sending people that go spend theirs. So.
Right. And it's pretty easy in archery. I can tell you that. You can spend a lot of money real quick.
Yeah, it does not take much.
Luckily, everything I buy is on sale, and almost they gave it to me, right? That's what I tell my wife.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. I swear. Yeah, anytime now. I mean, I'm usually buying and selling stuff on Facebook and groups, and like I just sold a site, shipped it out this morning. I mean, I try to always offset my costs. That's one thing I think that maybe be a good point to tell people, whether they're getting into target archery or hunting equipment or just archery in general, right? It is an expensive sport. If you walk into a pro shop and want to go pick up a flagship bow with good set of arrows and stabilizers, a sight and all this stuff, you're going to be in $1,500, $2,000, and you better be ready for it quick, in an hour. There goes the paycheck. But like, even myself with some of my target bows, my hunting bow that I'm shooting this year, I'm not under contract yet with anybody, but I picked all this stuff up used. I mean, you can get last year's model for 50%, 60%, 40, 50% off. Guys want to go shoot the newest one, so they've got 6 or 8 months underneath the bow, replace the strings, and it's good to go. So I've never had any issues getting burned with bad equipment. I do my research on the seller a lot of times, or just make sure they've got some references and stuff. But any of my arrows, stabilizers, all this stuff, I mean, you can pick up used equipment cheaper than going to buy it new if you want. And it kind of contradicts some of our conversation of helping out a local shop. So I completely get that. But if you're pinched and stuck for cash, again, you can pick up that stabilizer that you need for a little cheaper online if you want to, So people don't have to go drop those big dollars in the shops if they don't have it. Again, I'm all for trying to grow the sport of archery. I don't care what area it is, target or hunting. So again, if you can go afford to spend the money in the shop or go to a lesser costing bow and equipment, great, go do it. Go buy it out of the shop, go support that shop. But if you have to, you can find used equipment.
Yeah.
So
I mean, how many times has this happened to you where you buy something brand new or you buy something used or whatever and you get it and you don't like it? I mean, if you buy it brand new, you just lose 40% of the value. So.
Yep. Yeah, that is the one downfall that I've tried. I've tried to figure out an entrepreneurial mindset of how I can make some side money with archery. I hope and pray I am continuing to work hard and I win someday and competing with the best in the world and taking home paychecks, every tournament. But, how can we do that? And I haven't been able to come up, but if you could come up with a rental system, or if you had the money to start a shop, even with the target archery stuff, that people could come in and buy or rent stabilizers. Stabilizers is a huge thing, right? I don't know if I want to try a 27 or a 30-inch front bar on my target bows, or a 12 or a 10 or a 15-inch sidebar on it. Do I want to try V-bars? All of this stuff. My V-bar setup that I have on my Altus right here, retail, $700-800, and 3 stabilizers.
Yeah.
And then adding all the extra weight that doesn't come with it. Weights are absurd. I mean, you're probably in almost $1,000, if you really want to put a bunch of weight on it and quick connects and all that stuff, just for stabilizers.
Yeah.
I mean, it's unreal. And then if I didn't like it, if I don't find that works for me, well, now I got to go and sell it for 75% of what I just paid for it. I just lost a bunch, and it stinks. So I'm still trying to think out a way or how you could come up with a system to have people try things. I know some people have tried it with releases and stuff, but yeah, it's an area in archery that I think um, needs to be addressed. I
Yeah.
think so. Somebody can figure out a good system to rent equipment or try equipment, because I know it's also big for shops, right? If they want to go put in all of this target archery equipment, it's a pretty big investment.
Yeah.
It's taking up wall space and all of this stuff. When maybe they don't have a very big target archery community that comes in or something. So it's really got to be, the juice has got to be worth the squeeze for the shops to bring all that stuff in. Long Range does it. They've got a lot of target archery stuff, target archery arrows and bars, and some bows. But even that, to try a new bow, you got to hope that the rep is in that day, or know the shop's bringing in the archery rep, brand rep that day, and they have some target bows with them.
Right.
Or you better be at an ASA nationally to go shoot them. So yeah, testing stuff it gets expensive in the sport.
I seen a TRX one time brand new on the shelf at an archery shop, and I was like, holy moly. And he said the only reason that's there is because somebody bought it and then they backed out, and then it was already shipping on the way. And that's the only time I've ever seen like a target bow on the shelf, an actual brand new one. So
I've seen some TRX 34s, those bows that can kind of cross over between hunting, hunting and target. But even that, man, I mean, it's still pretty expensive hunting bow.
Yeah.
If you're going to do both, I can understand it. So I don't know too many shops that were willing to invest in a couple of those bows to put them on their shelves. So it was really by special order and stuff. So yeah, it's tough for shops to do both.
Yeah.
They really got to be having a pretty big, community of people and target shooters and stuff for them to really dive in and make that investment into carrying those products.
Yeah, and then the big, if they buy a product with, say, a sight or something for $300 and it doesn't sell, and then the next year model comes out, now they lost out on that. Now they got to sell it for, half off or something. So
yeah, dirt cheap. Yeah, just to get it out of the shelf or off the shelf or out of the case or something like that. Yeah. So yeah.
Well, is there anything else you want to talk? I mean, I know we could probably talk for hours, but I don't want to keep you too long and all that. So
no, it's all good. I'm just I'm excited for hunting season to come up. I mean, again, I feel this is probably the least prepared scouting wise I've got, coming up. But again, I've got some really good public pieces that I've hunted a lot. I've got pins. Onyx is great to be able to remember a lot of that, intel and stuff. But again, I've probably never done more testing when it comes to my hunting equipment finally. So I'm excited to shoot. And I'm loving my Hoyt Venom. I've shot a bunch of different hunting bows and stuff. And so, but it took me a little while to get it tuned, but it was from some of my own lack of knowledge for these bows and these systems. That's kind of a downfall to changing some brands and shooting some different bows over the last couple of years. I got really stuck shooting Matthews. I knew exactly how to tune them. Very, very easy to work on. These Hoyts are engineered a little bit different, and so I was running into a really bad high tear on paper with my hunting bow, and I couldn't figure it out for a month. I was talking to a couple different pros, people that have shot them, trying to go through all this stuff. I was going through different arrows, and that's kind of where I was going back to my arrow testing, all of this stuff, just trying to figure this out. Like, what the heck is going on? And all it took was a call to Dylan at Long Range, who was a Hoyt dealer. I said, listen, man, while I got you on the phone, I was asking him how late he'd be at the shop when I was over there last. And I said, hey, I'm having this issue. Like, what do I do? Oh, run the arrow higher in the burger hole. Run it higher than you'd think. It's like, that's it? He goes, yeah, move your knocking point up, an eighth of an inch, and run it through the top half of the burger hole. Came home, moved my rest up, retied in my knock sets, and moved my D loop up a little bit more than I think an eighth of an inch. Leveled it all out. bull hole, bare shaft and flesh. I'm going, you've got to be kidding me. I've been chasing my tail for 6 weeks.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, so it was just crazy, just something little like that. So yeah, man, now that I've got that thing rocking, I'm ready to go. So, yeah, I might dabble in the saddle hunting a little bit. So
Ooh.
that's another chapter, that I'm talking to some buddies, all of my buddies saddle hunt.
Yeah.
I'm diehard into my tree stand. I made that investment into that Lone Wolf custom gear system. So it's like pulling teeth for me. I'm just stubborn. I'm like, hey, this works for me.
Right.
I'll be just fine. I can get in. I've killed deer with it. Like, it's good to go. But I spent a good day helping out at the Genesis 3D mobile hunting event over in Ravenna 2 weekends ago, and it started out more on the saddle side. Austin really makes a lot of products for saddle hunting and mobile hunting and stuff, and but he started to make a lot of things for tree stand and just mobile hunting in general. And so spending a full day around a bunch of saddle hunters and a bunch of different saddles and stuff, I'm like, okay, this is pretty comfortable. I could see sitting here, especially on those days that, I'm rut hunting and sitting all day, or it's gun season and you're putting an all day sit in and all that stuff. So yeah, that's another area I might dabble in a little bit too. So, but yeah, other than that, man, I'm excited for fall to get here. It's been a long target season. Again, I go from basically December to, end of August now. So it's a long target season and a grind. So yeah, I'm ready to go sit in a tree stand and soak up the super fast 3 months that we get.
So do you plan on going to Missouri again?
If my stinking cousins would stop bailing on me. So my one cousin just bought a house. My other cousin, he just got a new job, and I think he's eaten up some vacation time already this year. So, those two guys are my best friends, and I travel and shoot with them as best or as most as I can. And so they've got some stuff, and my wife again is a saint. She knows I love hunting, and I work hard at it. So when I ask her, say, hey, I'm going to go to Missouri for a couple of days, she's usually pretty cool with it. So, I didn't figure the guy with a kid and, a wife at home would be the one that can still get to go. Those two don't have kids or anything like that. So, to get back to it, it's kind of up in the air right now. I'm not quite sure. I really don't want to go back in mid to late October to early November again when all those people were there. I kind of want to go that first week, but even then, first weekend might be just an onslaught of people. So yeah, I'm kind of tossing up the idea. Again, it's cheap to do. The tags aren't too expensive. You can get them over the counter. Hotel for a couple nights or sleep in the back of my truck. If the weather's nice enough. So yeah, it's up in the air. I'm leaning towards no, to be honest, just because I don't want to go by myself. I couldn't get a deer out right now if I tried by myself. So I'm trying to nudge some buddies like, hey, what's your interest level like? Would you want to go for a couple days, a weekend trip type of thing? So
yeah, the hardest part about the DIY hunts or just out-of-state hunts in general is finding committed individuals that will go with you. So, no, I'm headed down to Missouri, but it's not going to be quite DIY. We're going to an outfitter, so a lot less work, a lot more money.
Yeah, that deer behind me right there, that 10-point came from Nebraska. That was my first outfitter experience. It was I would say a semi-guided, hey, they told us where deer were at, and these are the stands we want you to go to. So, so there was that, but, they pulled deer out of the field for us, like all that stuff. They wanted to, keep the areas protected from gut piles and coyotes and all that too. So, if I'm being honest with you, I paid way too much money. I mean, that's a great deer. I had an awesome time with my family. But just I'm stingy like that for what I just went and killed in Missouri for $700-800 versus this. Again, we had lodging and we were fed. It was a great experience. Don't get me wrong, but again, I paid way too much money for the awesome experience I had in Missouri to do it myself and scout myself and find that deer.
Yeah, that's how it was for me in Kansas last year. But for Missouri, I've never gone on an outfitted hunt, so we'll see how it goes. But yeah, like we have the lodging, the food, and all that. There's definitely, the pro to it is it's not going to be nearly as mentally and physically exhausting as it was when I was out in Kansas or even for when you were in Missouri, because you're not going in as blind as what we were, when you went to Missouri or when I went to Kansas, you don't spend a couple days looking for deer here. Like you just show up, they already have deer kind of patterns. So we'll see. I'm excited to see how it goes, but we're going, I think, the 22nd to the 26th or 27th of October.
Okay.
So
The thing about that is that you'll realize if it's your first like outfitter hunt, is I'm assuming you're paying a pretty good price to go for the week and go hunt. You're gonna have some pressure to kill something and get the most out of that money.
oh yeah, I can imagine.
This deer was right at the 130 mark. They had a 130 minimum, and I was like, okay, 10 point. I'm trying to gauge their minimum. Like that's some pressure too, right? Like don't screw this up.
Right.
Otherwise,
Especially
it's
coming from Michigan, right?
it's
like,
another $500 if I mess it up. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. So it's like, okay, so I'm gauging deer all week, and then we hadn't gotten any deer down, and it was the last morning, and I shot that one at 20 yards. I saw $50 all week, but they were all that 2.5-year-old, 120, borderline-ish, and I'm going, I can't shoot that. I'd shoot that deer all day in Michigan, but I'm not going to shoot that. I'm going to hold out for a good 150, 160. And it's like, that was the closest one. I'm like, okay, I like that deer right there, really nice rice rack and stuff. So I sent it. And my cousin shot another one that was just over 130. I mean, we were grinding for those
yeah, I can tell you.
Like,
a buck that's 130 inches walks out on day one, I'm probably sending it. I don't know that I'm going to let that walk by because ultimately, again, the outfitter we're going with isn't as expensive as other outfitters might be. I mean, you can get all the way up into the $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 range for outfitters. We didn't spend that, but there's still a minimum, and I still paid a good amount of money, and I still have to pay for tags, when I get down there. Like, you don't get the tags are not part of the deal. Mm-hmm. So, so you're spending an extra couple $100, and 130-inch buck walks by. I don't care if it's day one. I'll sit and camp for the next 4 days, but 130-inch buck sits by. Like, I'm not going to go, oh man, I hope a 150 comes by tomorrow, because you only have 4 or 5 days to hunt, and that's not a long time.
Yeah, again, with a rifle, you talk about this anywhere. Archery hunting, so many things have to come together and go right for you to harvest an animal. They really, really do. And so even if you're in a window that you've paid a couple grand to do for 4 days, the pressure, you feel it.
Yeah.
I didn't like it. I mean, it's like, man, I'm waiting. I'm like, okay, where is that 150? You've showed us pictures. We know that these deer are here. Where are they at? And, we went late October. They were starting to rut a little bit. We saw some chasing, but we thought, man, we missed it. We missed it by a week. Again, so things got to line up just phase-wise and all that stuff. So yeah, man, I hope you're successful. I mean, it's an awesome time to do it. Again, it's a good camaraderie trip, all that stuff. I'm sure you're going with some buddies and family or something. But it's not something I'll probably go spend the money to do. Again, the DIY thing, I just get way more enjoyment out of chasing it down myself. I'd rather come up empty, spend half as much money, and be exhausted at the end of the week from just grinding it out and not finding it. But man, just like last year, when those puzzle pieces align, even if I just got stupid dumb luck and happened to be in the right place at the right time, I mean, that just felt so much better, than deer down, call out outfitter, come drag them out. So
I guess so. If that does happen, we'll have to see, I guess, the difference in feelings, because my Kansas buck is a lot like your Missouri buck. Stories are a lot different, but the way the 2 weeks planned out, the way the whole story panned out, like it was, this is probably the most rewarding deer I've ever put on the ground. So to go with an outfitter, we'll see. I'm going to agree. I don't think the emotions are going to be quite the same. Don't get me wrong. If I go there and shoot a 160-inch buck, am I going to be jacked up? Yeah, but to shoot a 140-inch buck on the ground in Kansas on public ground, a little bit different than a 160-inch buck that, while still free range, it doesn't get the pressure that, the bucks that on public land are getting. It doesn't matter what state you're in. So there's a lot more things that got to come together for you. You got to find deer, So, no, I definitely see that. It'll be different, and we'll see how I like it. I'm excited, but yeah, I've gotten a lot of the same kind of results as far as the DIY versus the outfitter, but we'll see how it goes.
I think the only outfitter type I'd go do again, like, is if that minimum was at like 150. If I was really having to struggle to not kill the 150s because they were everywhere, I was seeing 3-4 a day. If your average buck in camp was like a 170, okay, I'd probably go pay for that again. Those really big deer. That's the biggest deer I'd ever kill at that point. But I had killed 150 before, so again I was pumped. But again, that I was there to go shoot 150, 160-inch deer, and we weren't seeing them like we were supposed to. Again, we just missed the time, and I was like, hey, you know what? I'm not leaving here empty-handed. So if I see a decent deer, I'm sending it. So, and that's exactly what I did. Yeah. So yeah, it's certainly a different feeling. But yeah, man, I hope you enjoy it. It's still a ton.
Right,
and I'm sure your opportunities will be better than what maybe they could be on public land. So, you might. That was a cool thing about that going to that outfielder. I mean, we had so many deer around us. We were averaging 50, 60 deer a day.
I'll be honest, if I get that, that'll be nice, because in Kansas, I seen 6 deer in 2 weeks. So it wasn't very many.
Yeah. Same, man. Yeah, I mean, it was cool. Just another like side story. I mean, one of the stands that I killed that deer out of, and I hunted it a couple times, they got so used to hunters getting dropped off that they would just stage in the cedars. Like middle of the day, it's 2:00. The guide comes and drops me off on the side-by-side. I know where the stand is. It's well marked. I go back and walk up and ascend the tree and get in the tree stand. As soon as I am up in the tree, I still do not have my bow up. I've got deer walking at me. It's like they're within 50 yards. They see the truck, and as soon as the truck leaves, they know it's safe. They usually can't pick out the hunter or something like that. But I had it two sits that I did not even have my bow up the tree, and I had deer already around me that had to have been there the entire time. So
yeah,
that is a cool thing, that especially coming from Michigan, like I'm not one of those hunters that just sitting in spots that are just engulfed with deer and I'm having to pick and choose, or I'm seeing deer right when I sit down. No, I'm usually seeing them at last light, like barely able to see them, maybe take a shot, maybe not.
Yeah.
So it's like to see deer at those numbers and during daylight, get to really watch them and stuff was really, really cool. So and they weren't even on food, nothing like that. I mean, it wasn't bay piled or anything. So just they had stands in good spots, and you just were seeing deer all day long. So that was a really enjoyable part. Obviously, harvesting was cool, but the really enjoyable part was sitting there a lot of the days and just seeing tons and tons of deer, and just hoping the next one that walked out was the big one and shot at it. Yeah. So
that's what I always tell people too. Like, enjoy the process, because like sometimes the animal is not about the whole journey. I mean, like when I went out Wyoming and all that, like so many, because I did pay a lot of money. A lot of other hunters were so worried about harvesting a bear. And don't get me wrong, like that's in everybody's head, but like I was just having a blast, just soaking up all the little stuff. I mean, just all the little stuff. So a lot of people, like you said, the process is so unique, and you don't worry about the money sometimes. Just worry about the process and enjoy yourself. I mean, if you do get an animal, if you don't, I mean, just don't beat yourself up and don't cut yourself short because it didn't happen. I mean, they are animal. You're in their bedroom. They got an advantage. So even if you paid a lot of money or not, I mean, they're still gonna.
Yeah, they don't care a whole lot about how much money you paid. They care about them not getting shot.
Yeah.
I mean, I went with my dad, my uncle, and both my cousins. There was 5 of us in camp. I mean, to go shoot a really good deer and have my dad right there in camp with me, I mean, that was awesome. That was special to me. I mean, when my cousin called us after he had shot his deer, the next night or the next day, and then getting to go out there and watch him track it and coming across this thing. I mean, it was the biggest damn deer body-wise I've ever seen in my life. But that was cool, to have that type of stuff, just like we would back in, Michigan deer camp. When somebody's successful and you got your family and, closest buddies around. I mean, again, at the end of the day, that's the fun stuff. The hunt's cool, the harvest is cool, but you're never going to forget the people that were in camp, the times and stuff that you had, and the little stories and all that stuff. So yeah, you're exactly right. It's all that other stuff that's the cherry on top. It's the the camaraderie and the family and the friends and the time that you have in camp together. That's always the best part.
Right. Well, is there anything you want to shout out before you leave? I mean, your Instagram, your whatever. I mean,
yeah, I mean, my Instagram is just my first initial and last name. My last name is terribly hard to pronounce and spell, but it's Yahrmarkt. My Instagram is just RYAHRMARKT. I'm on your friends list, Joe, I think. So,
yeah.
Yeah, you can find me there, and then we got Facebook, obviously. But no, man, I'm hoping to just have a good hunting season, and I'm already thinking about next 3D season. Going to shoot professional. I mean, I feel blessed the opportunity to be able to do it. I mean, I feel like I'm ready. I feel confident that I can go compete at that level. I'm not. I hate that I'll say it. Maybe I'm not ready to go win that at that level, but I'm confident I can go compete. And if I put a weekend together, I do think I can win. So that's a good feeling to have, and I'm excited for next year. So just go enjoy hunting season this fall and start preparing for next year. And yeah, we'll enjoy it. But we got it.
Well, good luck this fall, and good luck next archery season. I mean, that's a pretty big step. So I really hope and I truly think that you'll do well. I mean, I don't know a whole lot about you as far as archery, but when you take a jump like that, I imagine it's not for the faint of heart. So good luck with that, and good luck this deer season.
Yeah, I appreciate it, guys. Yeah, thanks for having me on. I'm excited to I love doing this stuff. It's fun to talk, and again, you get some good people on a podcast, you can go down rabbit holes. I think that's why Joe Rogan's podcasts are 3 hours long, right?
Yeah.
You've got to watch those. So, but yeah, man, I appreciate you guys letting me come on and talk to you a little bit, and yeah, I'm interested and excited to see how hunting season goes for all of us.
Yeah.
No, thanks for coming on.
I really appreciate it. I mean, taking your time out of your busy schedule, and I know you're pretty strict on your routines and all that for how high you're shooting at. So I really appreciate you coming on and taking the time. We'll definitely have you back on. So
yeah, let me know.
All right.
Yeah, I'm excited. So yeah, let's do it after hunting season. We'll recap season and kind of get excited for target season.
All right.
There we go.
Sounds great, man. Thank you.
Cool. Thanks, guys. Take care. Have a great night.
Yep.
Have a good one.
Bye.